back. I want to thank everybody for joining me again. We're doing double duty. We may even do triple duty today. I just checked my email. Tom is he's having a problem. Getting he's trying to make it on here. Okay. He, the time difference was a mistake on his part, but we're gonna work around it, and I'm gonna be on the air for a little bit and see if he can make it up in here. Okay. So we're gonna freestyle until we get Tom in here. Um, I want to thank all of y'all for joining me again on the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, anywhere on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, elevation, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid. I'd like to thank you all for joining me on the Red Pill Diaries, the Red Pill Journals, Twitch, Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey, and we've been disconnected from locals. Okay, so that is already happening. We're gonna go into a little bit of news, okay? Until Tom. Random. Did you check out the last stream we just finished about 30 minutes ago? Random. We just had um former U.S. Colonel and he also former um Chief of Staff for Secretary of State Colin Powell. Oh, okay. All right. Good. You did. All right. Good. 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 So I want to address a few things, and we'll do this and see if Tom can join us. All right. Everything's real, and I don't get mad when these little things happen because I know life is real and life happens, and sometimes there's a miscommunication or somebody forgets something or they double book or something like that. I mean that's life, okay? And hopefully he'll be in. Let me check before we go further, and let me check real quick and see if he. All right, he's trying to get through everybody. Let's give him a little time. But while we're waiting, I saw an article right on Russia Today, just like right before the intro came on for this show, because we're going to be talking about the economics. We're going to be talking about the geopolitics, and I want to show you just how much contempt that the leadership of the world, the Western world, but especially the U.S. leadership, how much contempt they have for the average U.S. Citizen or people who reside in the U.S. that pays taxes. Okay, and this has everything to do with Ukraine. This has everything to do with the war factory. This has everything to do with the military industrial complex. It has everything to do with you. So there was an article that came out, and I'm going to be reading it for the first time with you all. It's called Finding Money for Ukraine, a Challenge. And then it says Washington. Okay. When I went to RT, I saw that right as the intro was coming on. I said, you know what? To buy Tom a little time, I'm going to address this. I'm going to read it, and we're going to address this, and we'll address a few other things. So we're going to go into this together. Okay. Listen to what this says. Kiev or Kiev, whichever way you want to pronounce it. Kiev should increase its own budget revenues. Now, first of all, how can Kiev create increase its own budget revenues? The economy is at a standstill. How can Kiev do that? Remember, the United States says we'll stand as long as it takes. Remember NATO saying that. Remember the European Union says that after getting Ukraine into this mess with Russia. Remember that. My girl Holly is in the building. My girl Holly is in the building. Holly, we're waiting on Tom. He had a missed schedule, and he was I think he was double booked or something, and he is trying to make his way here. So until he gets here, we're gonna shake rock, rattle, and roll. Okay. Um. So listen. Now the onus is on Ukraine to find a little more money with tax revenues drying up, with the resource rich areas of Ukraine under Russian control, or now a part of Russia, most of them. The United States says that Kiev needs to increase its own budget revenues. How is that going to happen? I'm asking. Now let's go a little further in this because this is something that we should address because it has a direct bearing on every man, woman, and child in the United States. Okay, Kiev should increase its own budget revenues. The U.S. representative for Ukraine's economic recovery, has said. First of all, she should be fired. If she was appointed the U.S. representative for Ukraine's economic recovery, there is no economic recovery. Hell, there's barely an economy. So she failed in her job of stimulating an economic recovery or rebound for Kiev. And when you have been put in the position of authority to oversee something, to bring it up to par, and you fail, what happens? You are fired or replaced, right? She should be fired and replaced. We deal with facts. We're not just with feelings, but with facts, okay? So let's read a little bit more because I Googled something a second ago, and I'm going to bring it up with you all, okay? I'm gonna bring it on the screen so that you can see it more than me telling you, okay? It says the U.S. is beginning to struggle to find resources in its budget to support Ukraine, and Kyiv should work to increase its own revenues. United States Special Representative for Ukraine's economic recovery, Penny Pritzker, told a panel discussion in Washington on Wednesday. The statement followed an announcement by the Biden administration of a new $1.7 billion aid package for Kyiv on Monday, and the U.S. national debt climbing past the $35 trillion mark for the first time on the same day. Now, I'm going to bring something up on the screen, okay? Give me a second, okay? I pulled this up because I like to deal with facts. I like to deal with reality. Let's see. Boom. And I'm going to show you what you can do to pull it up also. All right? On your screen, something should be popping up right now. Okay, you see it. All right. I put in these words right here. HUD says $20 billion can cure homelessness. Okay. One of the S's, I guess I was typing so fast, one of the S's was left off of it, but it still got to what I'm talking about. All right. Now look, so that nobody thinks I'm lying. I always bring this up so that nobody thinks I'm lying. Listen, I'm going to highlight this. Hopefully you can see it. Let me go back to my other screen and see if you can see me highlighting it. Okay. All right. This is the highlight. According to HUD, all right, it would cost $20 billion to end homelessness. Less than half of what is spent each year on weight loss and self-improvement. Less than half of what some people spend on pets each year. Now, stop right there. Why did I put that up there? And I'm going to leave it up there for a minute as a reminder of the contempt that the leadership in America has for you. How in the hell can they continually find $1 billion, $5 billion, and $10 billion and $20 billion to prosecute a war in Ukraine, which is not for the U.S.'s national security or national interest, and yet neglect the very people who pay the taxes to the United States government? 20 billion. Remember, the lowest estimate says that the United States has spent $200 billion in Ukraine, right? That's 10 times what is needed to alleviate poverty at home. 10 times. Not one time, not two times, not even 5 times. That's 10 times what you would need to eradicate, right? You would eradicate homelessness in America. So, how can you fund a budget that's 9,000 miles away and you do it to prosecute a war? And at home, bridges are collapsing, roads are collapsing, sinkholes are forming, buildings are becoming dilapidated. You're having a new generation of homelessness, a new generation of people who are hungry, a new generation of unemployed. How can Ukraine be more important than the people whom you were elected to represent? I'm asking. That's highlighted on the screen for you. I left that up there for a minute so that it can percolate in your brain, so that you can think about just how much contempt that these people in Washington, D.C. have for you. Ain't that something? Let me check something. Let me see if Tom is gotten the message. Hold on one second. While I'm talking to you all. Hold on one second. See if it was. He says it's a goal. I think Tom has the times and everything mixed up. I do believe so. But if he does, it is what it is. Hopefully he'll try to get on. I sent him the link again, okay? Um, but listen, in that contempt towards you, now think about this. In a time where we have a faltering economy, the people are maxed out with their credit cards, right? They're living from paycheck to paycheck. They're robbing Peter to pay Paul. The United States can come up with 1.5 billion, 5 billion, 7 billion, 35 billion, 80 billion for a war, which is a useless war that has killed over 500,000 people and displaced and injured over a million. How is that in the national security interest of the people of America? Huh? I'm asking you, how is that for you? Just tell me this. I'm asking you all, how is that to benefit you? And by extension, how will that benefit America's allies? Because when you get bogged down in debt, when your domestic situation is spiraling out of control, once it finally hits the fan, you're going to have to take more resources to try to put down insurrection and revolution in your own borders. That means that you have less money and less time to focus on the needs of your so-called allies. And then that means that now you're in a position where you can't prosecute any wars of self-sustainability or wars of aggression. Huh? Do they think about this? Are they thinking about this? Because it seems like to me, these people are insane. It's okay to spend 5 billion to prosecute a war, 10 billion to prosecute a war, 20 billion, 80 billion, 100 billion to prosecute a war. But you're telling me that you can't print out $20 billion to eradicate homelessness? Huh? And this is for these so-called Bible thumpers. And when I say Bible thumpers, I'm talking about these people masquerading as as believers or Christians or whatever. Okay, I'm not talking about those who believe. I'm talking about those who masquerade. Okay, so don't take offense to what I'm saying. Isn't there something in there that tells each and every one of us that charity starts at home, then it spreads abroad? I would look like a fool at my house. I'm the man of my house. All right, I'm the God of this house. I'm the king of this house, right? And I would look like a fool to direct all of my energy and all of my interests to someone in another state, maybe 6 states over from me, and yet my children are hungry, need clothes and shoes, but I'm buying clothes and shoes. I'm borrowing to buy clothes and shoes for someone 6 states over. That's madness, right? My wife needs to eat. My children need to eat. I need to eat. We need clothes. We need the necessities of life, right? But I'm taking our resources and giving it to people 6 states away. How much sense does that make? And is that sustainable? And if it doesn't make much sense when you look at it in those terms, and if it's not sustainable for a person to do that, how the hell do you think it's sustainable for a nation to do it? Nations are comprised of people, right? You would hope so, you would think so, right? So how do you think that's sustainable for any nation? Let's see, uh, let me put up a couple comments real quick, because I want you guys' participation in this also. Okay, we're not just focusing on this particular article. We're talking about issues because all of this is connected to what's going on in Palestine. All of this is connected to the Middle East and North Africa. All of this is connected to America trying to overthrow the Latin American nations or trying to prosecute a war in Ukraine or trying to pivot to Asia. Every bit of this is a part of that. So what we do is we connect the dots so that you can see the bigger picture. Okay. Look, let me put up some things. Boom. Hold on one second, everybody. I'm gonna put up a few comments real quick, and then we're gonna go back to this. And hopefully Tom will get the message. He'll come through. Let's see. We'll put these up there real quick. Yeah, Holly, that's what I'm talking about. What happened to as long as it takes? That's what I was saying. Now all of a sudden, it's that Kyiv should increase its own budget revenues. What? What? How is that? How is Kyiv going to do that? First, again, look at this. I just want you to see the irrational, insane policies of America in the Western world. You go and overthrow the democratically elected government of Yanukovych in Ukraine. You install Nazis and Zionists and anti-Russians there, right? Then you are forced to fund that government that you put in place. So now you have to pay for pensions, you have to pay salaries, right? You got to pay for all of the civil services that are needed because in essence the government and the civil society is really non-functional without your support. So now you've taken on an extra economic and political burden that you didn't have to do. Had you left well enough alone when you were talking about you are a democratic nation and what you want is more democratic nations around the world. You are democratic and you want democratic nations as long as the outcome is in your favor. But when the outcome is not in your favor, as was in Venezuela's election recently, then all of a sudden you go into color revolution mode, protesting and trying to delegitimize the duly elected official that is against your imperialistic policies. See, this is causing mayhem abroad and at home because it's causing isolation of the American empire. And when there's an isolated empire, a former hegemon that is now realizing that it is not the power that it used to be, it does not any longer have the wealth that it used to have. And at every day we see its political clout and influence diminishing. They lash out. They are lashing out. So, with that said, how does this connect it to what's going on in Africa? America is saying Kyiv should increase its own budget revenues. Well, who paid for Kyiv to go into Africa? Because Ukraine didn't have the money for it. Remember, recently, and I brought this up on the show that we just did and the show yesterday or day before, that Kyiv trained and armed rebels in Mali. They caught the Wagner and Malian army by surprise, and it wasn't just Kyiv forces. You know, it was Western forces. My sources tell me the U.S., French, and UK forces were embedded also. That's what I was told. Okay, and the U.S. is lashing out because they're losing in Ukraine, so they lashed out over there. Now look, the United States says Kyiv should find money to increase its revenues. Again, I go back to something. Who paid for Kiev fighters to be in Mali, to be in Africa? Because remember that if the U.S. stops injecting money into the Ukrainian economy, it immediately collapses. So now, again, I'm going to ask the question: who paid for the troops to go into Africa? It was the United States. So you can afford to pay Ukrainians and your special forces to go into those areas, foment unrest. You pay for arms for your troops and for arming dissatisfied or rebel factions of those nations. These are tens of billions of dollars. And all the people of America ask for is 20 to eradicate homelessness. So you're telling me your priorities are more on destabilizing nations around the globe, causing conflict and war and division, more so than satisfying the needs of your electorate? How do you think that's going to work out? I'm asking. How do you think that's going to work out in real time? Because in reality, what you're doing is putting an unneeded extra debt burden on an already over debt burdened nation, while at the same time alienating more nations and more people. So what it's doing is causing your fall to be that much harder when you hit rock bottom. Because, and think about this. With all the dirt that you're doing, when you finally fall, guess what? Those people are going to remember that. And when you're in the weakest position, they're going to come at you and say, you remember when you used to do this to us? When you had the ability to do this and do this? We didn't forget this. Because millions of people are losing their lives because of these irrational, insane policies of the US and the UK, and by extension, the EU. Right? They can't accept an equal playing field. They can't accept independent nations. They can't accept nations who have independent policies or who will cater to the need of their people over the so-called rules-based order. So, in their mad dash to force everybody into subjugation to them, they alienate their friends and their enemies. And they're positioning themselves for a hard fall. It will be a hard fall for the American empire, the British Empire, the Western global architecture. But what it says, yeah, Holly Horn says, she's quoting Tupac. She says, "Money for war, but not for the poor." Hey, how is it? And why aren't the people pissed off about it? Because listen, it's one thing for me to say this to you all and to pull up this stuff, right? But they tell you this every day. We're looking into our budget to see if we have more money for Ukraine. We will support our allies. But what about your constituency? Why won't you support your constituency? What's so important about Ukraine that it supersedes the very people who put you in office? What's so important about Ukraine that you neglect the very people in your nation? Huh? Your eyes are looking so far that you fail to see what's right in front of you. And that is going to be a stumbling block for the American Republic and the American Empire. It's arrogance at its finest. Let's see. Ascended Awakening says, what's the total amount the U.S. spent in Ukraine and Israel together? I don't know. Israel, to count Israel's money is kind of funny. Because listen, this is what the United States will say. They'll say, we're going to give Israel $3 billion. This is what they'll say, right? And then they'll funnel billions more into Israel on these back deals. And then they'll go and say, okay, we're going to give a grant to Israel. That's giving free money. A grant is a free check, right? And then they'll say, we're going to give a loan to Israel. And when they give the loan to Israel, they nullify the loan. Yeah, they give the loan to them. Then they nullify the loan that Israel never has to pay back. And then that's the money part. But here is the bigger part of the money. Is when they funnel weapons into Israel. Billions of dollars in F-16s, F-15s, F-35s, upgraded missiles. Do you know that Israel missile defense systems were almost entirely funded by the United States? Do you know that? You can't get a Happy Meal from the government, but they see the necessities to fund Israel's research and development on all kinds of things. You can't get a Happy Meal. And if you ask the government for something, the people say, oh, that's welfare, that's a handout. Israel is supposed to be a sovereign state, right? The hell you mean? You can give them billions of dollars and that's not welfare and a handout? And then they ignore you when you say certain things? But you scream about people asking, hey, listen, I'm not a beggar. I just need a help. I'm, at this moment, because everybody has gone through it. I don't care how independent you may be. There's a time in your life where you needed someone to aid you. And you may have prospered after that. But that was the moment right there that had that not taken place, you would not have become what you are or have gotten what you've gotten. Right? That's what the people here are saying. Hey, help us out. How in the hell can America prosper into the future when the very people who are charged to be the future doctors, lawyers, scientists, electronics, engineers, archaeologists, all of that, when they graduate from school, they're 200, 300, 400, $500,000 in debt. Their mind is, let me get from under this debt. I'm going to take 2 or 3 jobs to try to pay this debt off, which they most of them never could repay. So you have a debt forgiveness for Ukraine, but you don't have one for the American people. And you guys sit there and take it. I'm telling you, it's crazy. It is crazy. Shout out to my guy, Lord Freeze. What's up, Freeze? Mr. Freeze is in the building. Yes, sir. So listen, do you not see the height of contempt and arrogance towards you? That they prioritize everything and everybody over you, and at the same time they take your money without asking you. This is a con. The government takes your money, don't ask you if you, and then if you don't give it to them, they say you owe them, as if they worked on a job for 12 or 16 hours to get the check. And then they'll put you in jail because you refuse to give them part of your hard earned money. And then if you give them the money, they go and use it on issues that you don't agree with. This is a con. This is a Ponzi scheme. I'm going to take your money. And then listen, you owe me. Now they didn't work 1 hour on a, not 1 hour, not 1 minute. And then they say that you owe the government. How in the hell do I owe you when I never borrowed nothing from you? Huh? And you're not providing the services that are needed, that a government is supposed to provide. So why should I give you my money? I don't support your wars. So why should I give you my money to fund those wars? Because if I give you my money to fund the wars, then I'm a part of the war. Why don't we look at it like that? Because we're scared of big government. We're scared of that government. They use fear to push these policies. They use ignorance. Don't you think that in real life, a real government that caters to the need of the people want the best possibly educated people that they can have? See, because education is what civilizes us. The proper education, I should say. And without the proper education, you know what you see? Things spiraling out of control. Look at the areas that don't have the proper education. You see a uptick in violence, disrespect of life, the sanctity of life, and property. Because they were not afforded the proper education, not just education. Because education could be, hey, that cartoon over there is Tom and Jerry. They didn't lie to you. That's what it is. They just inform you of what it is. But proper education is to teach you the do's and the don'ts, to instill in you respect, hard work, honesty, morality, being ethical, God-fearing. And then to teach them different ways to arrive at solutions, not just 1 + 1 = 2. No, different ways to arrive at that. So when you have a problem, you're not just stuck with this one way of surmising the problem, because the problem can be outside of that way. We need proper education, proper guidance, and the leadership, they censor everything that is not approved by them. And then they think that by dumbing you down, it enhances their power, not realizing that without a properly educated people, there is no way to progress into the future. There is no way to compete on an equal playing field with the nations around the world. Right? We're seeing that in real time. Look at what they're doing in America, dumbing down the people. And now America is screaming that it's everybody's fault that China is surpassing. Right? Why? Because China turns out millions of college degrees every year. Millions. But this is unfair to America because America seems to prioritize war over the education of its people. And if you don't have the proper education, you cannot have a cultured people. So if we look at America today, what is the one thing that everybody talks about? I don't care if you look at a music video, I don't care if you look at a newspaper, I don't care if you're on the internet, I don't care what is the one thing that everybody prioritizes now? Money, material stuff. As if material stuff is the stuff. Then you look over in the East where they are getting a proper education. And what do? They prioritize family, community, right? Right? And look what's happening with their prioritizing family and community and ethics and morality. What happened? They're now supplanting the world's superpower, right? They're beating them economically. They're beating them politically. They're about to beat them geopolitically. And this is causing the Western world to go into a frenzy. And what's crazy is it's causing them to put even more restrictions on the dissemination of information, which is setting bombs at the base of the society because it is making people ignorant and dumb to the reality of the geopolitical landscape. How the hell can you compete on a geopolitical landscape with lions and tigers, right? How can you do that when you're a baby mentally? You have not been taught or trained properly in the way of competition, in the way of success. They don't think about these things. It's all materialism. Even when you look at a lot of these alternative media sites, it's all about making a buck. They'll tell you the truth, but it comes at a cost. Yeah, sure, everybody should get paid for their work. I believe that. I believe everybody should donate. I believe that everybody should share, like, and subscribe. I believe all that. But I also believe that over that, it is the host's responsibility to prioritize truth and proper guidance over donations and all of that. I believe so. That's the ethical and moral thing to do. Because so many people's lives are at stake here. We're looking at an entire world being removed from power. And in this removal, listen, in this removal, guess what happens? There are pains, there are deaths with anything. When a world is coming in and one is going out, we know in science that two things cannot occupy the same space at the same time. So there's a collision going on. And in a collision, people get hurt. Some get killed. Right? Without the proper education, as these worlds collide, you can be a victim of that. You should be prioritized. Education, proper education and guidance should be prioritized over showing your backside, over the type of clothes you wear, over the manner of speech, because I'm a country boy. And yes, sometimes I'm country, right? But I'm trying to give you the message of truth, right? So I think that truth should be prioritized. Proper guidance and proper education should be prioritized over popularity, over money, over power, right? And if you don't do it, guess what happens? What we see happening right now. The degradation of society, the disrespect and disregard for life, limb, and property, the disrespect of culture, the disrespect of people, the disrespect of differences, right? Because you can't process that because you've been taught a single way to process everything. And it's not the proper way to process everything. You're processing things the way that the psychopaths in power process things. And they know they got you like this. And they have you like this for a reason. So that they can extend their wealth, extend their power, and extend their stay in power as long as possible at the expense of everybody else. Everybody else. This can't go on in perpetuity. It just cannot. Now, I want to say, let's see, give me 1 second. Listen, And I want to address Russia for in a second. Okay, I know we talked about um what was going on with Ukraine and stuff, but give me 1 second, and we're going to address Russia for a minute because sometimes you can become your own worst enemy. Okay, like look at America; she can become her own worst enemy. Let me look and see if Tom was able to access the link. He's not able to. Okay, let's see if he will be. Okay, now listen. Russia knew America was doing those things in Ukraine, and they allowed them to do it. And then this is the blowback of that. Now they have to catch up and try to undo what was allowed to be done in Ukraine. Look what they did in Georgia, and now look at the consequences of what America did in Georgia. Look at what America did in Afghanistan. Look at what they're trying to do with Iran. And now, here's something with Armenia. Armenia is a CSTO nation, and America and the European Union are trying to pull Armenia away and out of the sphere of Russia. Why would Russia even allow that? Why? I'm. Do you think America would allow Russia to go into Europe, right? And say, you know what? Um, I think France should be with us. So France, come on over here. Do you think America would allow that? What about Italy? You think America would allow the Russia to go into Italy and change Italy's position and Italy's geopolitical orientation? No, and they'll be willing to go to war to try to maintain their vassal states. I think Russia should exert a little bit more power before it's too late because what we're looking at in Armenia, if Russia does not act, we're looking at the same thing that we saw in Georgia. We're looking at the same thing that we saw in South Ossetia. We're looking at the same thing that we saw in Ukraine and across the Caucasus in Armenia. If they don't deal with it now and treat the symptoms now, later on they're going to have to deal with the cancer. Don't you agree? Matter of fact, I thought I saw something on this matter. Yeah, I did. On Russia Today. This is the headline. U.S. helping Armenia cut ties with Russia. Official. This was an official saying this. All right? All right. Washington has praised the brave steps taken by the former Soviet Republic's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan. He is a plant. I wouldn't have even allowed him in the office if I was Russia. No, he couldn't. Why does America have the exclusive right to influence her allies? And when the wrong person that they quote unquote like, the wrong person that they don't like is elected, they get them out of there. Russia should exercise some of that for its national security. I'm not saying get involved in Armenian politics. I'm saying they should have prevented him from being elected. Because if you don't deal with the symptoms now, later on you're going to deal with the cancer. You understand? Now watch people start using my saying on the bigger channels. Like they always do. Let's go further. It says the United States is working to create, listen to this part. If this is not a spit in the face to Russia, if this is not a spit in the face to the CSTO, then you tell me what is. The United States is working to create the conditions for the government of Armenia to wind down its relationship with Russia. James O'Brien, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, have revealed. Now, what should Russia do? Huh? Are they going to take that? Because if they do, they're going to deal with that cancer later. It's better to deal with it now, where you have a better than 60% or 70% chance of killing the cancer before it evolves or metastasizes. But if you let it fester without treatment, guess what happens? It metastasizes to such a degree that it might become terminal in your relationships with the former Soviet republics. So on one hand, the U.S. empire says that every nation has a right to choose, and on the other hand, it installs dictators and patsies and puppet leaders in these countries, right, to direct their paths away from their original orbit. so that they can orbit around this star called America. But they don't know that America is going supernova. The economy cannot sustain this. The military cannot sustain this. The political environment cannot sustain this. And yet she continues to try. That's what you call desperation. Shout out to Perseverance Chameleon. Yeah, let me see. He says, money is the god of the West. And if you don't know, now you know. Boom. Mic drop moment. Yeah. My guy Jay Blue is in the building. Let's see. Hi everyone. And then Jay Blue says, these Bamas done started World War III. I'm stacking up on MREs and water. I was born and raised in a civil war in Africa. That feeling is in the air. I'm trying to tell you. Boom. So, well, listen, World War III has been going on for a while. This is not the beginning of the end of World War III. This is the end of the beginning. We've already gone through the beginning stages. That stuff with the infringement and the expansion of NATO. Those were all steps in World War III. The color revolutions, those were all steps in World War III. Why do you think that America strategically attacked nations that were allied with Russia on flimsy charges? Saddam had reorientated Iraq to Russia. Boom, right? Syria is a Russian ally and home to its only deep water, warm water port outside of the Black Sea. That you don't think that's strategic? Huh? Libya was a big trader with Russia. You don't think that was planned to attack Libya so that America could conquer Libya's not just resources, but her military trade and conquer her banks? You don't think the empire has to eat? The Western world has to eat. This is a parasitic system. I don't know how many times I have to tell you or guests have to tell you that the Western world, the so-called international rules-based order led by the United States and the UK is parasitic by nature. That means, matter of fact, hold on one second. I'm going to tell you what it means. All right? All right. Now, according to the dictionary, the word parasitic is an adjective. It means of an organism living as a parasite, resulting from infestation by a parasite. Now, a parasite is something that needs a host body, right, to sustain its own life. Without a host body, or we call it, in just nominal terms, a victim. Without a victim, the parasite ceases to be able to provide the substance needed for its survival and longevity, and it completely collapses and dies. So it searches for victims or host bodies. And as long as it can find host bodies, it can sustain its life. But once the host realizes that the parasite is in it or on it, the host tries to eject the parasite so that it can return itself to health. Because remember, while the parasite is on the host body, it is not only sucking the nutrients out, it is actually sucking the life out of that host body. So the host becomes sick, irrational, red-eyed, mean-spirited, all of that stuff. Those are signs that you are full of parasites. So what is to be done to return you back to life? You got to eject the parasite. Right? America and the West are parasitic by nature. They are vampires. That's what vampires do. Vampires are parasites, right? According to the movies, what do they need to live? Blood. What is blood? Blood is the life source of everybody, right? I don't care if you're an ant. I don't care if you're a gorilla. I don't care if you're a dolphin. I don't care if you're a human. Blood is your life source. Without blood, there is no life, right? So the vampires must put their fangs into a host and suck the life out to sustain their life. That's what we are accustomed to, and that's what we see in the Western world. That's what we always see in the Western world. We are watching Nosferatu in real time. Count Dracula. That's what we're watching in real time. And the world is getting fed up with it. So they're forming alliances outside of the scope of American dominance, outside the scope of the British pound, outside the scope of the European euro. They are now forging institutions that rival the IMF, the World Bank, the London Gold Exchange, the New York Stock Exchange. Why? Because they have it in their head that they no longer want to be a part of this thing called the rules-based order because it is unfair and it gives the wealth or in the life to the predators and keeps everybody else as the prey. They no longer want to be the prey. They want to enjoy their lives. They want to eject the parasites so that they can no longer leech off of them and suck the life's blood. And this is pissing America off. This is pissing the EU off. This is pissing the British off. Daniel Matt, thank you. Says fantastic analogy, Rashid, and spot on, brother. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And nobody talks about this. And I'm starting to think that some of these people in the alternative media, they have a vested interest in keeping this suppressed. Well, why? Listen, this is it's not even slow motion anymore. This is the demolition of the rules-based order. And you see every nation from Latin America to Africa to West Asia or the Middle East, to the Caucasus, to Eurasia, to Asia proper, all of them are trying to eject the parasitic nations of the West off of them. Look at what Africa is doing. Look at what Africa is doing in itself. For so long, Africa has been the mammary gland for Britain, the EU, and the US. And now they're ejecting the parasites. They're saying you have used my mammary gland to sustain your life at my cost. And then when you couldn't get the milk from me, you leached on me and you stole my blood. We're sick of this. Look at what's going on in Latin America. Look at what's going on in the Caribbean. Look what's going on in the Caucasus. Look what's going on in the Baltics. Look what's going on in Eurasia. Look what's going on in Asia proper. And even look what is going on in Europe as you have the Slovak leader and you have the Hungarian leader saying, listen, NATO is a war machine. That's what the business is, the business of war. The whole world is against this now. It's predatory by nature. Matter of fact, let me play something for you guys. All right. Listen to what Lavrov says about this.
The countries of the global South, Asia, Africa, and Latin America are suffering from the neocolonial practices of the West. Illegal sanctions, multiple protection measures, restrictions on access to leading technologies are counter to true multilateralism and create serious obstacles to achieving the 2030 agenda. Where are all those attributes of the free market, where the United States and its allies that they taught everyone to follow? Market economy, fair competition, viability of private property, presumption of innocence, free movement of people, goods, and capital, all of that has been jettisoned. Geopolitics has buried the once sacred laws of the market for the West.
So the whole world is waking up to this. This is not Rashid just saying this. This is the reality of the time. The more time passes each day, the more isolated America becomes. We talk about the population of India and China as being 1.4 billion people. a lot of people don't realize that the population of Africa is between 1.4 and 1.6 billion people. They don't talk about that. And think about this. Now you have an emerging Africa because China is the workshop for the world, right? China is the manufacturing hub for the world, but Africa is the manufacturing hub for China. You see this? So now when we look at these things, we see Africa saying, "Listen, we want the same things that everybody else is get. We want the same respect." And then you see Eurasia saying the same thing. Then you see Latin America and the Caribbean saying the same thing. Then you see Asia proper saying it. Then you even see some of the European nations are saying, "Hey, listen, this system that we have set up, it has to go. It has to go." Because now we have become victims to our own system. So everybody in the world is screaming for something new. The US, the UK, and Brussels are trying to maintain the old guard. It's a problem with that, though. See, America, she still thinks that she's 25 years old. And let me tell you about what I'm talking about. In martial arts, for those of you who don't know, I'm a black belt in Taekwondo and Yoshikai Karate. Yoshikai actually was the first martial arts I ever took. My father was a fifth degree Dan. Um, and my father told me and my brothers that either we learn to fight or we fight him. Well, that's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. I'm also a blue belt in jiu-jitsu and judo, and I'm a master student in what we call Nabard combat. So are my children. So I'm telling you about experience, okay? Listen, when you have been at the top, look at boxing. Let me give you a better example with boxing. Excuse me. You have these 20, 21-year-old guys that are coming into their prime between the ages of 23 to 28 or something like that, right? And they've been on top and they go into their 30s, right? And they still believe that, hey, I can take on everybody. They don't realize the accumulation of punches, right? The accumulation of miles that they put on their bodies will soon come home to roost. They still believe that I got the reflexes, I have the punches, I have the power, I can parry, I can do this, I can do this. One in a million can still do it. But the majority of them fall prey to their ego, right? And they believe that they are still that 25-year-old who was knocking people out, who could dodge the punch, who could take it right on the chin or in the temple without passing out. That's what America, the UK, and the EU believes. But they see China as a threat because they say, look at this young man coming up. Look at what he's doing. His training methods are not like ours. And yet he's accomplishing the same results and then some in a shorter period of time. We're going to have to take this young man out before he gets the experience that he needs to take us on. So we're going to try to set a fight up with him. So we may lose the fight, but this is our best option because if we wait 2 more years, we're going to get our clock clean for real. So let's try to egg him on and try to get this fight. So because this is my best chance, and if I beat him, I'll go down in history as the greatest. That's their mind. That's what the leadership is thinking. Not realizing that China is a beast, man. They have the testosterone, the testicular fortitude, and everything that America and Britain and Europe had in their prime. The only thing is they're more ethical. They have more morals, right? And they're a little bit more just. And this does not bode well for the American empire, the Western empire, because they're getting into a fight with a younger guy, a more stocky guy, a quicker guy, one who hits harder, who can take the punch, and then can level you with a counter. This is what America and the West are now finding themselves in. Look, Incognito says, better to seek to empower your brother instead of trying to rule over your brother. Mic drop moment, boom. Let's say that again. Better to seek to empower your brother instead of trying to rule over your brother. Boom. Mic drop moment. Yeah. So it is what it is. And we're seeing the collapse. We're seeing them lashing out. It seems like Tom won't join us today. Seems like he's having problems joining us. I keep checking the matter of fact, let me check him again. And I do believe that it's a misscheduling again from it. But it's all good, Tom. We're good. Just hit me up. We can correct this, you know. Listen, I've taken up your time for and I know you're tired of looking at this ugly mug. Listen, this has been a wonderful outing for me to talk to you all. Listen, and I want to say something to you all. All right, please help grow the channel. The censors are censoring my videos. They are suppressing my numbers. Um, and this is the only show that grows more each show, right? And then after the show, my subscriber count goes lower. We already know what that is, okay? So we're trying to beat the algorithm. And I want you to think about this. Just think about the last 14 or 15 days. I'm gonna share something with you all before we go off the air, okay? I'm gonna share something with you. Let me go to my channel real quick. All right, give me 1 second. And I'm looking at this, and it says 3 people. I just went to the YouTube page, right? And it says 3 people. Now in my YouTube uh, control dash, it says there's 63 people up in here. Now on here it says 3, but I'm looking at it, man. YouTube, you're something else, buddy. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, you guys are something else. But check this out. Let me go here real quick. Go to my channel real quick because I want to show something with you guys. Let's go to my lives. Okay. In the last 16 days, right? I've had Demetrius Lascaris twice. I've had Alex Craner on here. I've had Scott Ritter on. I've had Larry Johnson on. I've had Carl Zar on. I've had Tariq Amar on. I've had Carl Zar on again. I've had Professor Glenn Deason on. I've had Larry Johnson on again. I've had Carl Zar on once again. I just had Larry Johnson on today. I was supposed to have Tom Luongo on today, and tomorrow I'll have Matthew Arrett on, and we have a list of people that are coming on the show. We may have former Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, on. He hit me up a few days ago, and he said he's handling some stuff, but he doesn't want to come on the platform. I just want to inform you of that. I'm telling you, we're working behind the scenes. If you can, donate to the channel. If you can, become a channel member, become a patron. Go to all of the platforms. They're free. Sign up. This is the only way we can continue this. This is the only way we continue this because it takes a lot of time and effort and money. And there is no coincidence that I've been having problems with my stuff being shipped here also for my show. I want to tell you this too. Let me tell my audience this also. So I've ordered a lot of stuff. I thought my computer was here, but actually that was my gaming chair, okay? Do you know I've been having problems? My shirts that I ordered, I was going to give away some shirts on the show. They were never delivered. Some of my hats were never delivered. My computer was not delivered. We're still in some type of litigation to try to find out what happened. All right. Isn't that amazing? Huh? While we're doing this show. All right. Never had these problems before. Um, but we've had a huge influx of guests on the show because I wanted to show you that we can get the top-notch guests too. So why is it that other people that get the guests? I was seeing that I had Alex Craner on. You know, I was one of the first people to really start interviewing him and interviewing uh, Demetrius Lascaris. How is it that the major channels interview him and they get 100,000 views, and I interview him and just so happened I interview him first and only get a couple hundred? How is that? How is it that the links to my YouTube videos on all of these major channels, like on Telegram and stuff, have 30 and 40,000 views, which means they have to click the link to come to YouTube. But when you get to YouTube on my channel, it'll only show 300-400. Why is that? Huh? Is it because I'm telling the truth? Is it because I'm starting to piss a lot of people off? Well, we all know that. Let me read this comment real quick before we bring the show to a close. $107 billion just to Ukraine since Russia went in to rescue the ethnic Russians in 2022 does not count the 5 billion. I think that's more than that, James, Alex, because I think it's like 200 and some billion. I think it's more. Um, and they get that funny money bookkeeping. So, but I think it's over 200 billion. Um, but on that note, listen, I want to thank each and every one of you for giving me your time. Join us tomorrow. What time will it be when we do the show? It'll be 1 p.m. Central Time. We'll have journalist Matthew Arrett on the show. Join, man, you guys support the channel. Share, like, and subscribe, please, okay? We go out the same way that we always come in with love in our heart for each and every one of you who loves truth. Know that my love for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. And remember to do right, not because people are watching, but because it's the right thing to do. That's what my mama taught me. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate everything, and I really appreciate your time today. Deuces. We're out of here.